Welcome everyone to the last, I guess it's our first last time, week 17 preview for the Cleveland Browns at the Pittsburgh Steelers this week. Welcome to Here We Go Cleveland podcast. I'm your host Bill Hebel, and today we're here with a special guest. As Michael is, he's on a boat somewhere, doing something, drinking something. So he's a returning podcast guest, Owen Niese. Say hello to the fans, Owen.
Hey.
How's it going? How's your week going?
Here we go. Oh, I've had a decent week, I guess, whatever. I don't know. To be honest, the bowl games have sucked. So the football this week has sucked because the Browns ain't looking too good. The bowl games have sucked. I guess I'm looking forward to the Buckeyes tomorrow night.
It's going to be a fun one.
I got that going for me. I haven't got into basketball a lot yet, but the Cavs, the Christmas Day game sucked. Yeah.
Yeah, there's not a lot of, we could use some good luck here as Browns fans. But, there's a few games, in the NFL this weekend and last weekend that, teams are going for seeding right now, or they're going for whether or not there's, draft pick, possibilities, position possibilities. So, I think in the NFC, the only team that can really switch right now is Seattle and Atlanta. If Atlanta wins, they're in. If Atlanta loses and Seattle wins, then they're in. And then on the AFC, there's a 3-team, and there's also seeding differences that can happen. I think the Panthers can be anywhere from 2 to 5, depending on different games this week. So that's pretty crazy because they can end up winning the NFC South if the Saints lose and they win, and then they also get the 2 seed if the Rams lose. And then on the AFC side, most of the stuff is locked up, except for big games this week for Cleveland at least, is, Pittsburgh's going for that number 1 seed, and New England is also trying to hold on to the number 1 seed. And then Buffalo, Tennessee, and the Chargers, have that, kind of a round robin thing. I think if Tennessee wins, they're in, which I just want to say, we're going to move on to some draft position possibilities for the Browns pick, but, Tennessee is the least likely. Let me put it this way. I would rather have the San Francisco 49ers come over and play in the AFC and take Tennessee's playoff spot than the Titans actually getting into the playoffs. I mean, that game, if it's like Tennessee at Jacksonville on the next Saturday, that's just going to be a horrific game to watch.
Yeah, honestly, William, I know that you're talking this weekend up, but for you and I as Browns fans and to our listeners who, all 6 of them who are Browns fans, 2 of them are us, the third one is Michael, who will listen to it when he gets off his boat. For the 3 other listeners, I don't even think they care about the Browns game. You care about the Houston Texans game because that is the only game that matters.
Oh yeah,
and you're only worried about one draft position, but when you have a top 5 pick, it's huge.
Right, that's really true. So let's run down. We're talking about the draft position possibilities for that Houston pick, which the Browns got as a trade last year. If you've been under the rock, and Houston took Deshaun Watson at the 12th pick. So as it sits right now, before Week 17 is played, Cleveland has the first pick as they locked that up last week, surely by losing.
Whoop whoop! Locked it up.
Locked it up. New York, the Giants are second. The Colts are third. Houston, or the Browns would have the 4th pick because they hold the tiebreaker with a lower strength of schedule rating, I guess. So they played a lesser amount of, or they played a schedule this year that had less wins than Tampa Bay had, because Tampa Bay and Houston have the same record. So, yeah, like you said, the only scenario really is if Houston wins against the Colts, then that pick becomes 1-5 for Cleveland. So, I mean, they play the Colts, so Houston should win, but you never know because it's, is it Tom Savage? Is that who's still their quarterback, or is he out?
But to be honest, when you go from pick 4 to pick 5, the way that I look at it is that the Browns should take a quarterback at number 1.
Mm-hmm.
And I love, and I said all along that I'd put my whole heart into Sean Kaiser, but it's just not worked out.
Yeah.
And this, right now, pick 1, you have to say quarterback until free agency comes along, and then maybe we can have another discussion. But right now, we don't have a veteran quarterback. We don't have a serviceable quarterback. Not yet. I think Deshaun Kaiser can get there, but right now you look and you say Cleveland's got to draft a quarterback at number 1.
Yeah.
But my thinking is that the Giants and Colts might not need a running back, but if Tampa Bay gets into that 4th spot, they might take Saquon Barkley.
That's true.
Whereas if we're at 4, then maybe we'll take Saquon. The Buccaneers, they do have a good defensive line.
And
that's
do.
what makes me think that they might not take Minkah Fitzpatrick. But honestly, anybody could take Minkah Fitzpatrick and be thrilled. But in my opinion, I think Cleveland and New York both go with a quarterback at 1 and 2. And then, that leaves the Browns with either Saquon or Minkah at 4. So you can't lose in this draft as long as you take the best available guy, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. And I read, I was on that, I forget what website it was, but they were saying, there's a possibility that New York, they could trade up to Cleveland to the 1 pick just to be sure that they get Josh Rosen as the quarterback pick. Now, I don't know. Let's talk about that a little bit. There's been some.
What's it worth to draft up one position for a guy who doesn't want to come to Cleveland anyways?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
It's not worth shit.
So this week, again, if you've been living under a rock, or I guess it's not as bad as living under a rock now because the anyone following the Browns, it's basically us as the podcast listeners and the people who actually have to work for the Browns and follow them. That's about it. Maybe Mary Kay is still following along. But so
shout out to Mary Kay. If she wants to be on,
oh yeah,
invite her on.
Tweet at us, Mary Kay. So Josh Rosen came out and basically said that he basically says probably what every, not every, but I feel like a lot of people maybe think this, but no one actually really comes out and says it. But he went out and said that he would rather be drafted later and get picked on the right team than be drafted early, which basically means the Browns, and get put on the wrong team. So what are your...
Well, let us not forget that Myles Garrett said the same thing.
Right.
He wanted the Dallas Cowboys to come up and get him. And that was super unrealistic because the Cowboys were so good that there's no way they could come up and get that first round pick. But he wanted to go to his hometown team, and I would imagine that Josh Rosen wants the same thing. Now, I'm not giving the guy any credit because I think he's come off as a horse's ass.
Yeah,
but I'm saying
I agree.
That these guys go through that, and I would go through that too. I would say, listen, I'm an Ohio boy. It'd be nice to stay in the area.
Right, and I feel that I feel that he feels that way, if that makes sense what I just said. But yeah.
What you said makes sense, but it's hard for us as Browns fans to look and say that we don't understand what this California kid's thinking because he's got a lot of money on the table. He's destined to be a superstar. Keep your mouth shut and just play football.
Yeah, and I don't think you necessarily he needed to even come out and say that because like when Eli Manning got drafted, as soon as he got drafted by the Chargers, he threw a fit and then eventually forced a trade for him and Phillip Rivers to basically swap places, and you end up on a Giants. So why wouldn't you if you're Josh Rosen? I mean, like we said, with free agency, with all this other stuff happening, with Sam Darnold, players have until January 15th to declare for the draft, and Saquon actually hasn't declared for the draft. I just saw a ticker on the bottom of ESPN that he's going to wait until the last day to decide, and the same thing's probably going to happen with Sam Darnold. So there's a lot of stuff that can happen between then, so why not just wait until whoever picks you and then say, well, I don't want to do this, and then your agent can probably force the Browns or whichever team that you may not exactly get to go there, but you'll at least, throw up the Kyrie flag that you're disgruntled already, and they'll have to trade you.
I think Darnold's kind of already shown his hand by him being the anti-Rosen and saying that he would be honored to be picked wherever as long as he gets an opportunity to play in the NFL. I
Right.
think he's shown his hand that he's going to come out this year, and he needs to, because you can look at the history of quarterbacks who stay for another season, especially USC quarterbacks who stay for that senior year.
Yeah.
They really do, they fall off. And actually, Darnold has probably fallen off from, I think maybe a lot of people would say he probably peaked in that bowl game against Penn State last year.
Right.
He probably peaked, and he's already fallen off some, or at least plateaued.
Yeah, right.
But I think that he looks and realizes that this is his shot, especially with the way that Rosen's acted. I think he realizes this is his shot. He's going to be a top 3 pick.
Right, and so
somebody's going to come up and get him if the Browns don't take him, or if the Giants don't take him.
Yeah, exactly. So let's run through. So we, if we said, so we're thinking, as Browns fans, we're thinking if no quarterback gets signed in free agency, then, that number 1 pick, that's basically why Saji was fired. It's because he wasn't willing to go after that quarterback. So I definitely think if free agency doesn't happen, or, if, say the Chiefs want to move, Alex Smith to make room for Pat Mahomes, or, barring some other trade, that first pick is going to be a quarterback. And then the 4th or 5th pick, you look at it, here's some of the top players available after that. I do think, New York is going to go with the quarterback. The Colts, I don't know where they're going to go. Maybe a tackle, to shore up some of the offensive line troubles, especially because, they have Andrew Luck, so they don't need to take a quarterback. So we've got, Fitzpatrick, Bradley Chubb, Arden Key, Calvin Ridley, Quentin Nelson, Derwin James, and then there's a handful of really good offensive tackles available. So, I saw one mock draft that had us taking Darnold and then an offensive tackle to shore up. He would probably play right tackle until Joe Thomas retired, which actually I don't know if you saw this today, but
do we need a right tackle, William? Is Sean Coleman not getting the job done? Like, I thought he was like
the referees really seem to like
guy.
Him. Gosh. He is that's my top. We need to take a look at this position, moving into next year. But, I don't know if you saw this report, but there's something that, Joe Thomas is not ready to make a decision about his future yet. So he's, I don't know if that means retirement. I don't know if that means reworking his deal. But that's kind of scary. So we're definitely going to have a draft preview later on when it gets closer and after the combine, and me, you, and Michael will all sit down and look at all the possibilities. But if something about Joe Thomas comes out where he says he's done, then that completely flips, I think, because that left tackle spot is just a cornerstone. And looking at like kind of Seattle as an example, they take a lot of these defensive linemen and try to flip them into offensive tackles, or they take guys who maybe they're not ready to play right now, but they have a lot of a high upside. But I don't think you could do that in today's NFL, just because there's so much limited practice time that these guys get before they actually have to step on the field, and you need a guy, whether maybe he's not as good as, or doesn't have a high of a ceiling as one of the guys that someone like Seattle would take, but he's ready to go there week one rookie year, and he can hold his own. So, yeah, I mean, you said Saquon. I mean, Saquon would be great. Do you see any situation where, the Browns take someone different at 1 and then like a Baker Mayfield with the Houston pick?
You know how it goes is that after bowl season's over, from that whatever day of January until the draft, there's always a lot of hype around offensive linemen and defensive linemen. And I think, and rightfully so, there needs to be, because they aren't the guys that you can see perform outstanding, especially on the offensive line side. They're not the guys you can see perform outstanding just as a casual viewer. I mean, you're going to see quarterbacks who are good always. You and I can see that. Anybody can see that. Anybody can see their stats. But in my opinion, the only way that we would take somebody other than a quarterback at 1 would be that there's got to be a guard or a tackle that we just start looking at tape and we can see they are outstanding.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with that if you can prove it to me that is a need. And really the only way to prove it to me that is our number one need would be for us to get Kirk Cousins or to get Alex Smith.
Yeah.
And that's no secret. I think everybody knows that.
Yeah, I agree. And, I was just thinking there's also a possibility that, Sam Bradford is going to be a free agent after this year. And Minnesota, I don't know what Minnesota is going to do because they're loaded with Bradford, Keenum, and Teddy Bridgewater. So, I don't know if the Browns especially want to try to move for a guy like Teddy Bridgewater who, albeit his college career was great and he was a great quarterback up until he got injured, but that was just such a devastating injury that you don't really know how he's going to come back and how his durability is going to hold up, because there were doctors coming out that, he was maybe never going to play football again, but then he was back on the field, less than 18 months later. So there's tons of possibilities. I'm sure, Dorsey is just going to be, running around with his head on fire trying to figure out which people to move. That's one good thing, I guess, is that he just has so many moves to make, but at least he has a lot of tools, whether that be free agency or the draft, that to use that. And, maybe it's on draft day. Maybe it's draft day that the Browns, they choose, maybe they shock everyone and choose like Saquon with the first pick, but then trade the Houston pick for, a quarterback or something, some backdoor deal that they know about with that when they have that number 1 pick. So yeah, I don't know. Like we said, we'll definitely have to, go through the draft more.
And I didn't realize it till now, but Keenum only signed a 1-year deal in Minnesota.
Yeah.
So he is. You'd think that if Minnesota's smart, they can only have. They can't re-sign all these guys, right? So all 3 of the quarterbacks they have there, I think, are good and are worthy of a starting position in the NFL next year. It's just obviously whichever one they want, they're going to get.
Yeah.
And even their second best, they might get. I don't know, which leaves us with the third guy.
Yeah.
Or us or the whole NFL to pick from the third guy. Now, but when you look at things, there's less teams in the league that really need a quarterback that either is not on their roster and they can re-sign. Most teams have already got a quarterback that's either locked up or they can re-sign.
Yeah, I know. There are a couple teams I think they have to make decisions, like New York. There's talk of, are they done with Eli Manning? Should they throw everything in and draft a new quarterback here and be done with Eli Manning? Then that opens up the possibility that, the Browns can get him. But yeah, like you said, I think there's probably 8 to 11 good quarterbacks in the NFL, and then probably 8 to 10 more that have mediocre quarterbacks, and then, the rest of the league probably needs a quarterback. But yeah, there are, those top 1 through 20 quarterbacks that are okay for their teams right now. So yeah, I mean, like I said, we're going to have to go through this more thoroughly, and after free agency and everything is done, it's just going to be a crazy time, I think, for the Browns. I think John Dorsey's ready to just completely shake things up. I mean, he is a guy that's big on veterans, and as the Browns have you could see that in Kansas City, and as the Browns have one of the youngest, they do have the youngest team in the NFL, and if they kept all these draft picks, they would easily have the youngest next year. So, I see him either picking up a lot of guys in free agency or moving some of these draft picks for guys that are veterans that he likes. So,
William, to be honest, looking through this, I mean, I can see the Jets being a team that why not take a quarterback. The Redskins, they're one of those teams, the 50-50 thing on whether they can get Cousins to come back. If Cousins can't come back, they're going to need to draft a quarterback, because I can't imagine if Cousins doesn't resign, why somebody else would want to go to the Redskins, because their ownership is just terrible.
Yeah.
Worse than Cleveland's ownership.
Probably.
They've just gotten decent results. But then you look at, really, I mean the Bengals, maybe because it seems like they had a bad season and they're calling for Dalton's head. But I don't know. I mean, the Bills, maybe you're looking for a quarterback. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think they know really what they. I mean, everyone outside in the NFL says just freaking play Tyrod Taylor. He gets results, and then they're like, I don't know.
I mean, outside of that, I mean, the Cardinals, they're going to need a quarterback, I would say, but and then the Broncos.
Right.
I think the Broncos are kind of in our boat, whereas they've tried some younger guys. They're going to need somebody, but I don't know. It's going to be a weird year because I think the demand for quarterbacks from the draft is not going to be that high for two reasons. Because there's not that many teams that need a quarterback.
Yeah.
And there's going to be enough top level free agents.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
We're truly in a win-win as long as we say with free agency first, we take best available and pay him, and then in the draft we just say take best available for what needs you have left.
Right. That's really true.
And that's why I'm so high on Saquon at that pick 4, because I think that, or 4 or 5, whatever, that come after free agency and after that first pick, that a leader and a running back is going to be the need that we have. And you can't go wrong with Calvin Ridley either. I think maybe what I mean to say is an offensive playmaker that's not a quarterback is going to be the person we need at pick 4.
Right. Or I say, because Crow is a free agent this year, and so I think getting, that would be, that I think would be ideal for me, is if we get a quarterback in free agency or a trade, not one of these top 4 picks, and then take Saquon and Minkah Fitzpatrick with 1 and 4, and we're able to shore up a quarterback outside of that. I think that would be, I just don't think you can go wrong with any kind of Alabama defensive player, and our defense definitely needs upgrades, especially, because our running game was like 7th in the NFL this year for offense, but the defensive passing game was like 28th in the league. So you can always use a slew of people, because it feels like those are the type of players that get injured the most. Because they're smaller, faster, they have so much speed to work around with, and they're just flying into plays. And those guys seem like they get injured a lot more than any other position. So, let's turn the clock back, 5 days. And has it been 5 days? No, just 4 days, I guess, so far.
It's all weird with all these holidays going on. It's just
right,
like you just don't know when you're working, when you're not. Like, yeah.
Yeah, there's games. The NFL has expanded their games. It seems like they start on Tuesday and end on the next Tuesday for each week now, and it's like, I get confused. So going back to week 16 against the Bears, which seemed like, all these other games before this didn't really seem too Brownsy, if I can say that. But this game just was completely, oh my gosh, we are the Cleveland Browns. Like, I guess it was a good game in self-identity because they just fully became the Cleveland Browns that everyone knows and loves. But I got down here our segment of breaking down the top 3. Could it get any more Browns plays of Week 16? So the first play on here is the Myles Garrett pick 6, which was called back because of an idiotic offsides call on Carl Nassib, who didn't have a great game overall. But gosh, Michael has been saying it all year that he wants to see. He's seen some out of Myles Garrett, but he hasn't seen that play where it just blows you away with his athleticism and how good of a defensive prospect he can be. And that pick 6 was it. I mean, he tipped the ball, he was able to turn his body, catch it, and then outrun a few defenders, and then he also, made a couple moves and scored that pick 6. But I just, that was my top. I mean, other people have said that the Higgins catch, run, and fumble was their top play, but I just think that Myles Garrett play was just, that's just too storybook that something like that would happen where Carl Nassib gets an offsides on a play like that.
And the thing is though with Carl Nassib and why it's so Browns is because Carl Nassib has really been one of our top defensive guys all year. He's been solid all year.
Oh yeah.
And that's why it's funny because it's like he is your sure bet consistent guy, not overwhelming, but just consistent. Just
right.
A good, consistent defensive lineman.
Yeah, especially taking over for Agba. I mean, he's really has played pretty well at that left DN spot that he normally lines up in. So, okay, let's.
That's why with me the catch, run, fumble just before the end zone is the most Browns thing there is. But in week 15 of the season, when you're an 0-14 team, I mean, what do you expect?
Yeah, I know. It's like when I first saw that play, I was like, oh, I first thought that Higgins was just going to stay on the ground, maybe because he had actually made a catch, so I thought he was just going to stay there until he got tagged, and then he got up and started running it, and it was just, I mean, you have to give him credit because he was trying to score. He was trying to put the Browns in some kind of position to have a shot in this game. But it's just catches it, he trips, he falls down. That's already Browns enough. And then he runs and fumbles it into the end zone. I don't know. Did you see the Barstool? I have another thing on here about Kaiser's perfectly placed interception. I mean,
beautiful, a beautiful throw.
Beautifully caught him right in stride, the defense that is. So, I mean, there are more plays. There's a play where Jabril Peppers just basically lined up as the right tackle for the Bears. I mean, you can go on and on last week of plays where it couldn't get any more Browns, and I mean, it's just a culmination of this season that leads into the shit show that will be us trying to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers this week. I mean, I don't know.
What Michael was saying, like pull out all the stops,
right,
do whatever. Let's put Jabril on the offensive side of the line because he's not getting it done on defense. And you and I talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
That basically line, and my brother-in-law who's a huge Michigan fan, he knows it too. He's like, I love Jabril, but he's not a coverage guy. He's got to be up at the line. If he's going to play coverage, he's got to jam somebody and slow him down because he can't figure out how to make it work fucking 35 yards off the line.
Well, that's the thing
It's
is,
like, find something to do 35 yards off the line. It's like he needs to be on somebody right away and say, hey, here's your man. You know, if he beats you, he beats you, but don't let him just choose what he wants to do.
right. And that's another thing is like, can you really blame Jabril Peppers for too much because he's just like 75% of the plays, he doesn't come within 20 yards of the ball. Just because he's so far back that. And like, that's another thing is like, is it even worth drafting, say, Minkah Fitzpatrick if Greg Williams is just going to put him back 25 yards? I mean, something needs to change in that philosophy. I mean, it didn't work all year, and it was like a laughing stock of the NFL of like, people were tweeting out. That was the Twitter joke of the first like 4 games was that your TV wasn't even big enough to see Jabril Peppers on the screen, and the only way you can really see him sometimes is when the NFL and CBS shows the all 22 camera that has to zoom out wide enough to see all the guys. So I think there definitely needs to be a scheme change in that. I mean, you look at the numbers, even with Jabril Peppers back that far, the Browns were one of the last in the league on deep balls. So
yeah,
it's not a schematic that works and should continue to be messed around with.
And it's not Jabril's fault. It's definitely coaching's fault. But in that regard, I have to say that I do like Greg Williams, and that I would not be upset if Greg Williams kept his job because I do like what he's doing. Somebody just got to look at him and say, listen, you ain't playing Jabril this way.
Yeah. I mean, look how
you cannot.
Right. Look how he excelled at Michigan. He literally played like almost every position, and he was up by the line mostly, if I remember correctly. But he was.
Yeah, he was more of a linebacker.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's kind of like
smaller linebacker.
Right. I think like Kindred, he's like him and Jabril are like the perfect guys to kind of bring up and play and say like your nickel and dime package when you're facing a lot of passing. Those guys can come up and be the linebackers in those packages.
But now we have 2 guys who can do one job.
Yeah, that's true.
We might have 2 of, and who knows, we might have the 2 best guys in the league to do that one job, and we don't use either of them to do that one job.
Right. Yeah, that's the one thing about, like you said, Greg Williams has done an excellent job this year. I mean, somehow being able to lead the NFL, and I mean, maybe it is because the other teams know they can pass all over us, but leading the NFL in, yards allowed per rush attempt and overall rushing defense is pretty good. And the linebackers do a good job. I think, Kirksey and Schobert, they may end up like 1-2 or 1-3 in total tackles this year, which is really good because that
yeah.
You don't have to worry about are those guys in the right positions or anything like that. So that's good moving forward, especially, Schobert was kind of I think he was like a 4th round pick or something like that Sashi took. So, all right. So moving on from the breaking down, the top 3, or you could go top 3 or top 10. Could it get any more Browns plays of Week 16? Moving on to, let's talk about Hugh Jackson a little bit. There's been a lot of talk that Haslam has already said that Hugh will be back in 2018. But if he loses Week 17, is there any question that he should be fired? He would be 1-31 the last 2 years. I mean, gosh, I know that you said that Haslam said that he would take him back, and like if he jumps in the lake, then he will have fulfilled the promise that he made to Browns fans at the beginning of the year. But I mean, I just can't believe that he's going to come back even if he does lose this week.
No, I didn't even think that was a debate. I thought we all knew he was gone, and I'm trying to look up right now, kind of what Hugh Jackson's record is in his 3rd year with the team.
Yeah.
And I still don't think it's that good because, I mean, the only place he's been a head coach was with the Raiders.
Yeah, he was only an interim coach there, and he was for he was 4-7 during his 11 games or something like that. So, I mean, the only way I could see him, I would be happy with, there is a possibility, and I seriously don't know why the Bengals are considering this, but I guess it's because they want a guy they're familiar with, is that they may be willing to trade they'll probably fire Marvin Lewis. He's probably gone, even though there was rumors that came out that he was gone, but then he said he wasn't. There's also other rumors that the Bengals could trade for Hugh Jackson. And I would not be mad at that at all.
Did you see that? Okay, so if you Google Hugh Jackson, the second suggestion that comes up is Hugh Jackson's daughter, and Hugh Jackson's daughter was pissed that we didn't get Jimmy Garoppolo.
Oh my gosh! Well, okay. Here's the thing, though.
But here's my thing.
Yeah.
Hugh, he might not be a good NFL head coach, but he's teaching his kids the right way. That listen, that they can. I mean, Hugh might not be a head coach, but he must be able to find quarterback because even his daughters can decide who's a good quarterback.
Oh yeah, apparently. Well, here's the thing though. I think I wonder what the Browns were trying to offer for Jimmy Garoppolo, because there's no way in hell that John Dorsey wasn't working the phones trying to figure out what could be traded for Garoppolo. But the thing is that the Patriots did not want him in the AFC because they knew how good he was, and they did not want to see him tear up the AFC every year. They literally sent him as far away as they could to San Francisco. I think that's, they won't have to play the 49ers once every 8 years. So
yeah.
That's one of the reasons I think they, I don't know if the Browns, what if the Browns went as far as offering a couple first round picks? I don't know. I don't know if they went that far as to offer one of their top first round picks, but I really do think that the Patriots were not looking to move him within the AFC.
And this comes to a point that I wanted to make, and that is I saw a Twitter poll from ESPN Cleveland. Now I hate ESPN in general, but when it comes to ESPN Cleveland, was that Hugh Jackson opposed to a different NFL coaching candidate, and such as Bill Belichick. That's who they brought up. They said, replace Hugh with Bill Belichick as head coach. How many wins would the Browns have? And it was 0-1, 2-3, 3-4, 4 or more.
Yeah.
And the 65% or 66%, 2/3 said 4 or more Bill Belichick would have.
Yeah.
And my comeback to that is that yes, Bill Belichick would have 4 or more, but you have to remember that in New England, Bill Belichick is also the GM. Okay?
Right.
So we already took care of our Sashi Brown problem as our GM.
Now, don't tell me you're suggesting that Hugh Jackson should become the GM.
No, I'm not suggesting that. I'm saying that I'm suggesting that Bill Belichick's good because he picks his talent. Bill Belichick knows what good talent is, and that's why Bill Belichick looked and realized that it's time for Jimmy Garoppolo to go before he's a free agent, because there's 31 other teams out there. One of those is going to see how good he is.
Right.
He's not going to fly underneath the radar that long just because he sits on our bench. Like, somebody's going to want him. I'm going to get rid of him for something. And that's where I'm saying that poll is bunk.
Yeah.
because he is the GM too. So he sees the talent, he picks his talent, and he coaches his talent.
Right.
Okay, so throw the reason why, don't put Jimmy Garoppolo on not on Hugh, or don't put any of the quarterbacks necessarily on Hugh.
Yeah.
Put the play calling on Hugh.
Yeah, he's been pretty bad, I would say, at play calling. But you also have to look at, DeShone Kizer leads the NFL in red zone turnovers, which is definitely not Hugh's fault. God, any of those.
We could run the ball.
He's thrown 10 interceptions, 6 inside the 20 and 4 inside the 10. It's just like, that's on Deshaun to realize that when you're that close, those plays are just so much more precious, and any possession down there is worth so much more than any other possession. And that's exactly where you have to take the ball have to take care of the ball. And for half of his, I guess he has, I don't know how many rushing fumbles. I don't know if he has any rushing fumbles, but for almost half of your interceptions to be within the red zone, that is just crazy. I know, like people like Peyton Manning or Eli Manning, they had like 20 plus interceptions their rookie year, but I doubt any of those were, I doubt a quarter of them were in the red zone. They were probably all trying to make plays or tip passes from errant wide receivers.
It was on third and longs. That's why, I've done a lot. I've read a lot about, why Aaron Rodgers has so many interceptions, is because he gets stuck in these third longs, and basically he throws a deep ball, it gets intercepted, and it's just as good as a punt.
Right.
And but sometimes it works out and his receiver catches it and you get a 30 or 40 yard gain.
Yeah.
But in the red zone, that ain't happening. That's not what you're doing.
Yeah. That shocks, that stat surprised me so much to see just how many picks that DeShone Kizer had in the red zone. And I think, that's the question again about, like you brought up the Bill Belichick, Hugh Jackson poll. I could see how people think, earlier in the year we had the close games against the Saints and the Jets, and, there probably are some things that Bill Belichick knows that he could maybe give Deshaun a better opportunity or a better play call to work with. But then you also look at Bill Belichick doesn't call the plays. It's Josh McDaniels that's calling the plays.
Very true.
For New England. So I think that's another thing that needs to be reevaluated is Hugh Jackson giving the play calling abilities to someone else. Because you look at, Bill Belichick, he's the head coach and the GM. He is literally the only head coach and GM in all professional sports. Doc Rivers has tried to do it as the Clippers head coach and GM, and God, is he awful at that. So it takes...
And that's why if somebody from ESPN Cleveland is going to watch this or listen to this and calling you out, that is not fair, because that does not happen.
Right. Yeah. So...
But William, looking at... Okay, so who do you want to see as the head coach of the Cleveland Browns in 2018?
Oh my gosh.
Who are you rooting for?
Such a tough answer. In a perfect world,
a perfect realistic world.
A perfect realistic world. Oh gosh. I could see them bringing on, it stinks that there's going to be so many coaching vacancies. It could be up to, 13 or so coaching vacancies, which means that guys like McDaniels are going to go somewhere, or guys like, I forget who the Patriots defensive coordinator is, but he could go somewhere. So there's a lot of talk of those vacancies being filled, because in other years, maybe you could talk the Patriots defensive coordinator guy into coming down and coaching for the Browns, but that's just, I don't know. I'd love to say like Pete Carroll if he got fired, but I don't think he's going to want to come. He's going to, somehow stay in California.
Better opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to go coach the Cal Bears or something like that, just so he can stay on the West Coast. Man. I don't even know. I do know, some of the coaching candidates that I don't want to see as a Browns fan. And that's John Fox, ex-Bears coach, or soon to be, Marvin Lewis. I mean, God, if the Browns somehow decide to swap Hugh Jackson for Marvin Lewis, I think I may stop being a Browns fan. I mean, that is just unbelievable. I've heard that a lot of people talk about, Jeff Fisher just because they'd be like, well, I'd be happy going 8-8, or I'd be happy going 7-9 every single year. But I don't think even Jeff Fisher would be able to get this team to go into 8 or 7-9. I mean, he's gonna he doesn't know what to do. I mean, look, he freaking took Todd Gurley and made him look bad. And now he's like an MVP candidate this year. So,
yeah. And I don't know. Jeff Fisher kind of the history of doing that.
Yeah, seriously.
That after he gets fired, he looks back and says, "Look what I did." And it's like,
right. Yeah, it's like maybe
it's just like you can't do that once you leave. You can't look and be like, "Look, it's fine once I left." No, it's not.
Right. Yeah,
because there's more times than not that it does not work like that, Jeff Fisher.
Yeah.
So I'm totally good because I don't like Jeff Fisher's attitude.
Yeah. And then I had Ben McAdoo on here, and Dirk Cutter. I mean, those are just guys that are going to be fired that I just do not want to see the Browns even take a sniff at. So, I mean, to try and answer your original question, I don't know who I would want to see as a Browns coach, and it seems like Haslam is behind Hugh for another year, so maybe we'll just have to suck up with that and get a new offensive coordinator. So do you have any candidates that you do or don't want to see?
I don't. I mean, how do you feel about Jim Caldwell?
I mean, he's another guy kind of like Jeff Fisher or Marvin Lewis. He's just kind of he's got a good quarterback, and he's just kind of been floating around, playoff. I think they went to the playoffs I don't know, probably 3 years that he's coached there, but they haven't won a game since the late 80s. So what do you think about Jim Caldwell?
I think that I like his personality. I think he's pretty even keel guy. He has a record of 61-50 61-50 in the regular season. And I think that he's the type of guy that he has a winning record, and you really not seen that he's ever worked with a lot as a head coach. He's never worked with a lot, but he's always made it work with just enough to get a better than 500 record. And is he ideal? No. But is he going to be the best guy that's available? Yeah.
Possibly, yeah. What about Chuck Pagano? That could be. I don't. He's another guy that really hasn't had to deal with a lot, or been able to coach with a lot. I mean, all he had basically was Andrew Luck, and you could.
Do we try again with Bruce Arians?
Maybe
give that a go.
I mean, I can't believe that he's rumored to be gone. I mean, he's pretty good coach.
Best bet?
He's that could be a possibility. I would not be opposed to bring back Bruce Arians. I would definitely be I'd definitely be in favor of that. I think if we could get a good quarterback that Arians could, he took, whoever thought Carson Palmer would excel again as well as he did a couple years ago when he was not hurt. And, he knows how to, those two guys, Jim Caldwell and Bruce Arians, I think, and maybe Chuck Pagano, they've, for what talent they've been given, they seem to have at least put together, a decent amount of wins every year. So,
and of course that's saying that Jim Caldwell's available.
Right.
But again, listening to my brother-in-law, who is a Lions fan, signs kind of point to that. and so, I'd be good with that,
Right. So,
Jim, you're not going to move your family that far away. I think, I don't know how old his kids are, but, listen, you're not going to be that far away from home or from where, from from Detroit. It's easy to move stuff. If you need help, I got a pickup truck and a trailer. I'll move you into a new home in Cleveland. Like,
you heard it here first.
That'll be my contribution.
Yeah, I mean, he could probably just take the Dan Gilbert private jet into work every day, and he could get that worked into his contract. So,
I think it'd be great. I mean, Terry Francona can buy him a little scooter.
Yeah,
he can scoot his way down to the stadium every day.
Perfect. It'd be perfect. May have
Jimmy, come on, man.
May have to get him a warmer coat if he's because he's used to been playing in the dome, but get him a warmer coat for the natural conditions of the Brown Stadium and scooter.
Whoa! Don't you act like he's not a tough guy. I mean, he was with the Ravens. He was with the Colts, who have an indoor stadium, so I guess it doesn't count. But yeah, dude, he's proven.
Right.
He's proven.
All right, so let's move on. We've got all of our pre-draft talk done. We've got our Week 16 talk done. Let's wrap this up. Kind of quickly. We just need to knock out some points here. Steelers preview. There's not much to say here. The Steelers have absolutely dominated the Browns since the expansion, and they're favored by 14.5, which kind of shocked me that they wouldn't be favored by, maybe even, 18, 19 points, something like that.
There's been no rumors yet on to who's playing and who's sitting.
Right. I mean, the Patriots. So the thing about this
Friday and Saturday come, when they finally say who's going to be playing and who's not, we'll change, I think, what the spread is.
I think so. And it's already moved. I think that's what it opened at, was 14.5. And I think it's already moved to the Steelers by 11, which, maybe just some, just some Vegas lines moving around. But yeah, I mean, the Patriots, I don't know how, the Patriots play the Jets. So there's not really too much of a chance of them losing that game and losing the 1 seed. But, there may be some scoreboard watching by the Steelers who, if they see, I don't know if they want to do this, but in the second half, if they see that, the Jets somehow pulled ahead of New England, then Ben Roethlisberger comes in the second half, if they have to put in a couple drives with those guys probably score 2 touchdowns on those 2 drives. But so, I've been wrong all year about whether or not I should take the Browns or whether or not, but I think at this point, just watching last week and seeing how bad they were against the Bears, who are one of the other bad teams in the NFL, I have to take the Steelers. I hate saying that as a Browns fan, but I just don't think that the Browns are going to come anywhere close to that 14.5 point. I saw on OddsShark the projected game score is like 33 to 18 or 33 to 8, excuse me. So they think the Browns are only going to score about a touchdown.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that, the Steelers will cover the spread, and, damn, I hate to say it, but I don't think the Browns are going to play well, and that's fine. I'm
really not expecting them to show
well
much,
for?
Right?
Like, the Steelers guys. Even their reserves are playing for something. Shit, our starters aren't playing for nothing. I'm sitting here saying I don't want to bring any of them back. Like, I'm fine,
Yeah, I think
I'm definitely. I'll take the Steelers to cover.
Yeah, that's no question. And maybe if it was a different opponent than the Steelers, you could say, well, yeah, they're going to try hard because they want to win for the teammates and everything like that. But it's just like the Steelers is such a daunting task that I don't even think that the Browns, with some fueled by some heart and emotion, are going to come close to that spread. So that's our last pick of the year this year. Hopefully next year we'll be making the picks in week 17 and maybe sniffing that in the hunt for the playoffs. My goal for next year, as I say this, is just I hope the Browns just aren't eliminated from playoff contention by, at least week 8. At least if they can be 3-5 at that point and not completely mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, by an early point in the season, this would just be, so great as a Browns fan.
It's, and it's so humiliating that you get to week 13, and there's teams that are 5-7, and you look at that thing that comes up as you're watching them games on Sunday or Monday, and they show that in the hunt, and you got your 4 division leaders, and you got your 2 wild card teams, and then they got like 7 other teams that are in the hunt, and I'm like,
right.
These dudes are 4-8. How are they in the hunt? We could be 4-8, like not with this roster,
no,
and not with this front office, but we could be 4-8 fairly easily,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, we could be 4-8 next year in week 13 or week 12 and be in the hunt. We could be 5-7, and our name could be like in the middle of those teams that are in the hunt.
Yeah, I agree. I think we do have a lot of talent and a lot of young talent that really is going to benefit from having a full off season with the Browns. And, the other bad part about that is, like you said, a lot of these guys are definitely not guaranteed to come back next year because there's so much room to improve. But maybe John Dorsey can see a little bit past that and see that some of these guys just need to develop. And I don't know if he isn't going to have the complete flexibility to take away all of the guys on the Browns roster that are maybe just because of there's not that much cap space. But yeah, I really do see that, it's a possibility that the Browns are, at least in the hunt at one point in the season when all the media outlets start looking at that stat. So.
All right. So break down for me. You got here the milestones. Let's hear it.
Yeah.
You did a lot of research on this.
I did a lot of research, but you know what I came up with?
Let's hear it.
I did a lot of research, but as Browns milestones go in terms of running backs with 1,000-yard seasons or wide receivers with 1,000 yards. I started to do a lot of research and I realized that there aren't really that many close milestones that players are trying to get. I mean, Crow's like 170 some yards away from 1,000 yards, so he could possibly get that. I mean, he's already over 1,000 yards from scrimmage. I think Duke Johnson needs maybe 40 some yards to get over 1,000 yards from scrimmage. Should be good to have our 2 running backs get that. That's great to have those guys be a passing and a rushing threat. In terms of Browns rushing records, Kaiser only needs 37 yards to break the Browns quarterback rushing record for a season. I forget who the guy is. It's like 1973 season, but I think Kaiser averages maybe like 21 or 22 yards per game, so he needs to be a little bit above that. And maybe with Shazier, thoughts and prayers to him, but with him out, maybe Kaiser could do that. I mean, I know I'd hate to see Big Ben in the lineup just because I know he'll probably break he'll probably have 37 yards on one play where he scrambles. I mean, look how much Trubisky ran against the Browns, and then you look at how much Roethlisberger has killed the Browns on just similar plays like that over the years, time and time again. So that's the Kaiser stat: 37 yards to break the Browns quarterback rushing record for a season.
I'm rooting for that. Without a doubt.
Rooting for that. Garrett's a little, it's a steep climb for him, but he needs 2.5 sacks. This is a random stat. To tie Jabal Sheard for second most sacks as the Browns rookie. 2.5 is a lot to ask for him. I think he's had 1.5, was his most in a game. But, he could maybe get to that especially if, like we said, if
Big Ben isn't playing.
Yeah. So, but that's literally, like I said, I started to do a lot of research, but that's all the milestones that I can think of, come up with. So, moving on.
So okay, so breaking down to our players to watch.
Yeah, who's your offensive player to watch? We'll start with offense first.
I'm going to be honest because like I said before, I'm not sure who's coming back next year. I'm not sure, but I got to say that I think that our offensive line, you need to watch there because I think there's 4 guys on the offensive line that are starting right now that can come back. And if it's me, I'm totally good with Spencer Drago taking that left tackle spot next year.
Yeah.
The only spot that I think that needs to be filled is that right tackle spot, and maybe, and that's whatever.
If we put a dummy,
that's the only spot that.
If we put a dummy out there just covered in flags, it would do a better job than Sean Coleman would at getting holding calls. So.
Well, I mean, but maybe Joe Thomas comes back and you tell him if he wants a lesser role, he can be right tackle, whatever. I don't care.
Or he comes back and you move Drago to right tackle or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, no. I'm good with that. But I think we've seen that Joe Thomas's body is starting to definitely started to wear him down some, and he's fine at right tackle, left tackle, whatever. He's pretty much God. He can do whatever he wants.
Yeah. So
I'm watching our 4 offensive linemen without a doubt. I think that's going to be our core going into next year, which is good. That's a great start. And then on the defensive line, I'm going to go with Myles Garrett because really on defense, there's going to be a few guys that keep their starting positions, but there's going to be no guy on that defense that gets the hype like Garrett does.
Yeah.
And he deserves it. Like I said, last week and seeing him return that interception for a touchdown that was called back, you can see the dude's healthy. Get him a full year of conditioning and training on him. Because they talk about, and you've said this before, that the NFL draft, you're not training for an NFL season. What you're really doing is training for it's a track workout. It's not a strength. It's not a strength and a sprint speed. You're not working towards getting ready for an NFL season. You're getting ready to put up big numbers and things that don't really matter a lot. So I'm going to watch Myles Garrett, I guess in week 17 and definitely through the off season because he's really impressed me. And his personality's really impressed me. I think he's a captain next year.
Oh yeah.
I'll say it. I'll put it out there. He's a captain in 2018.
Yeah, that's one of the best things at least about Garrett and Kaiser can definitely be put in this category is that they have, for being rookies and for being on a Browns team that has just not been successful for a very long time, and especially this year, that they have like a great head on their shoulders. And that's just shocked me and surprised me all year round is just how confident and level-headed that those guys are or have been throughout the season. So I'll go opposite. I'll go defense then offense. My defensive guy to watch is Jabril Peppers. Like we talked about before, moving into next season, we definitely think that some scheme changes could be made to put him in better positions, but I want to see him step up and make some plays, this year, or this last week against the Steelers. So, I think he was supposed to also be like a punt return and kick return specialist for us. I know Days is kind of taking over the kick return roles, but, punt return.
And we talked about that.
Yeah.
We just think that he's just wore out and that he'd be better, if he wasn't playing 3 downs right before.
Yeah.
A punt, before. Well, not even 3 downs. If it was only 3 downs, we'd have a hell of a defense. But it's 9 or 12 or 15 downs before he gets to return a punt. And if he's playing 25 yards off, he's running around a lot before that.
Yeah.
Before he gets to return his punt.
Right. And, a lot of people talk about, rookies in the NBA hitting the rookie wall, or maybe even rookie running backs hitting the rookie wall. But I think Jabril Peppers has definitely hit the rookie wall. As you said, he's pretty much tried to do everything, and also having to play back 25 yards and come up and, make tackles at the line of scrimmage when he sees it's a running play. I mean, that's a lot. And then, he's running. I mean, I wonder what the stats, I wish the NFL had more advanced stats on this, but I mean, I wonder how many miles or whatever yards that he's ran this year.
Damn, we could make a mint off tracking that.
Definitely.
$1 million idea. If there's some Silicon Valley tech guy out there who's looking to hit it big in the sports world, at us.
Yeah.
DM, here we go, Cleveland. Let's get something going.
Yeah, we've got some ideas for chips and balls and chips and players. So, okay, so wrap it up. Offensive player to watch. I don't know. I'd say Duke Johnson, because he's, he amidst all this controversy, he came out and said that he would love to be a Browns player for life. So, just watching him, he's been the most exciting thing to watch all year. Some people may say, well, Josh Gordon coming back was great, but, I think Duke Johnson is a stud. So that's all I have to say really this week. So, do you have anything else to add?
Dude, let me get in on Duke.
Okay.
I love
stock?
Duke. I love what he said. Duke, if you listen to this, freaking at us. Get you some apparel. Get you some Here We Go apparel. Here we go,
Yeah.
Cleveland apparel, Duke. Come on, buddy. Damn. Who else is going to play an 0-16 team and be like, I want to stay here my whole time, other than Joe Thomas?
Right. I don't know.
Right.
That's just really amazing to me that Duke said that. So,
Duke.
yeah, shout outs to Duke.
Duke, come on, Duke. DM us. Get you some merch.
But
compliments of me. I'll pay for it,
compliments
Bill.
of Owen. He'll pay for the shipping and everything. So, all right, that wraps it up for Week 17. Thanks, Owen, for filling in for Michael. It's always a pleasure to have you on. Like I said, we'll have you on for the draft preview when we spend an obnoxious 3 hours breaking down everything that's going to go on. So,
hey, listen. It's going to be a long off season. We got to talk about Yonder Alonso coming to the Indians. We got to talk about how the Cavs are doing later on and how, hopefully there'll be something exciting with the Cavs. We make a decent trade and we can,
there's going to be
some.
a lot of things to talk about here with the Brown season wrapping up and starting to talk about the Cavs and then the Indians eventually because it's not too far before pitchers and catchers report. So
what's fun is that you and I kind of talked about the Cavs a little bit already. So
yeah,
I'm hyped up. I definitely want to see this Brown season end. I'm high on Week 17. Definitely watch, but come next week this time.
Rock
I'm
and
ready to
roll
go on
for
the Cavs, man.
Yeah. All right. So thanks everyone for listening. Thanks again to Owen for subbing in for Michael.
Hey, thank
love
you,
to have
Bill.
you guys on
Thanks, everybody.
as a guest. So that does it for Week 17 preview. Cleveland Browns at Pittsburgh Steelers. Subscribe to Here We Go Cleveland on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, wherever you can find us. So thanks everyone.
Here we go.
Yeah.